So, let's start with a big question. Are we humans really the smartest species on the planet? Or are we maybe just the most arrogant? Today, we're going to dive into a pretty powerful challenge to that old, long-held belief in human superiority over, well, everything else.
Now, that quote comes from primatologist Christine Webb, and she frames this whole idea in a really interesting way. When she says the arrogant ape, she's not pointing a finger at any one of us. It's more like a character we play, a worldview we inherit without even thinking about it. And this whole worldview is built on an idea called human exceptionalism.
So, what is human exceptionalism, really? Well, at its core, it's the idea that because we're different, we're better. It's this belief that our uniqueness gives us a free pass to treat the rest of the living world as just a pile of resources for us to use. But here's the thing, this idea doesn't just hang out in philosophy books. It actively gets in and messes with our science.
All right, so how does a bias like this actually warp our knowledge? Let's take a look at how our own sense of importance can seriously handicap our ability to understand the world around us.
Okay, just take a look at this. It's wild because it lays bare this deeply unscientific double standard. When we want to compare cognition, we often take a chimpanzee who's been separated from its mother, living in some restricted lab, and who do we compare it to? A human child sitting comfortably on their parent's lap. The deck is completely stacked against the chimp from the get-go, and yet studies like these are sometimes used to prove human superiority. It's not good science.
So what's the alternative? What happens when we stop trying to test animals in our world with our rules and instead just watch them in theirs? That's when things get really extraordinary.
And this brings us to an incredible story about a young desert baboon named Bear. Now, Bear had been causing a bit of trouble, and one day, an altercation with some researchers got really tense, kind of scary. But the very next day, Bear walks right up to one of the researchers who had seen the whole thing go down.
And what he did next is just wow. The researcher, Christine Webb, describes him making this very specific gesture. See, in baboon society, baring your teeth like that, in this kind of forced grimace, it's not a threat. It's the exact opposite. It's an apology. It's a way of saying, hey, we're cool, I mean you no harm. It seems Bear understood how the researcher must have been feeling after what happened.
What Bear showed right there is something scientists call theory of mind. And for the longest time, we thought this was our thing, a uniquely human trait. But here was Bear, a baboon, demonstrating this super complex ability, and not just with other baboons, but across species. I mean, that one moment just blows up decades of assumptions.
But okay, let's pump the brakes for a second. It's obviously not that simple. There's a very, very powerful case to be made for what makes us humans genuinely different. We have to look at the other side of the coin.
I mean, you got to acknowledge the facts. Apes don't write books about us. No other species is thriving in outer space. We use abstract reasoning to figure out incredibly complex problems like climate change. And we build on the knowledge of the people who came before us in a way that just seems totally unparalleled. These things are, for sure, uniquely human.
So, how do we square this circle? We have these incredible, unique abilities, but we also have this dangerous bias. Well, the key, it turns out, is to make a really critical distinction between being unique and being superior.
Here's the difference. Human uniqueness is just a biological fact. Every single species is unique. A cheetah is unique. A blue whale is unique. A tiny ant is unique. They all have their own special skills. But human exceptionalism, that's a moral claim. That's taking our uniqueness and saying it makes us better and gives us special rights over everyone and everything else. And that, right there, is the heart of the arrogant ape worldview.
And this all leads to a fascinating question. Are we even judging intelligence by the right metric? What if our whole definition of success is just fundamentally biased to make ourselves look good?
Let's look at this two ways. On one hand, you could define success as dominance, spreading everywhere, building rockets, conquering nature. But what if you define success as sustainability? I mean, think about mosses. They've been thriving for 400 million years, creating these incredibly balanced little communities. By that standard, who's really more successful?
Look, this isn't just some fun thought experiment. Shifting our perspective away from dominance and towards connection, it can fundamentally change everything about how we see the world and act in it.
And let me tell you about someone who embodied this shift perfectly, an ornithologist named Len Howard. She took this famous C.S. Lewis quote and applied it to her life's work. Her whole philosophy was that you can't really understand birds by studying them from afar, like objects. You have to actually get to know them.
So what did she do? She opened her home. I mean, literally, the birds would just fly in and out of her cottage. And by building these individual, trusting relationships, she saw things nobody else had ever seen. She saw birds actively teaching their babies about the danger of flying into windows. She proved that empathy isn't a roadblock to science. It's actually a gateway to a much deeper understanding.
So what do we do with all this? Where do we go from here? Well, first, we can just try to recognize our own biases, acknowledge how our assumptions color what we see. Second, we can cultivate a little more awe and empathy, maybe just slow down and really look at the world around us. And finally, we can embrace the fact that we're all connected. Our well-being truly depends on the well-being of the whole living world.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty challenging thought to chew on. What kind of intelligence are we, really, if we can continually create these massive, existential threats, but we can't seem to get our act together to solve them? Really makes you think, doesn't it?